Every time he invited me over, we'd open the door and there would be that ankle-biting dog barking its head off. If she was human, she was screaming bloody murder, but she's a dog and barking bloody murder doesn't sound quite right. Besides, she doesn't really bark, she yaps. She's one of those dogs that would yap at everything. We'd always hear her even before we even got inside the door. It's kind of a bark that makes you want to drop kick her across the room. She would bark, and her bark reminds me of Dino from the Flintstones. It's a contrived bark. It's annoying as hell, and the bark doesn't even sound like a bark from a dog. Her name is Daisy. But she doesn't connote any of those images of happiness and simplicity that Daisy might bring along. I think of, a notion of happiness, and it would be annoyed with her bark if he stuck around along anyway. She's a Chihuahua, which makes her look like a fat, tan dachshund with big ears. She's no longer than 18 inches, but I think she thinks of herself as a Doberman pinscher or something, guarding her territory. She'd growl at passing traffic, snap at an outstretched hand, and yap at a stranger's voice. "Don't talk until she sniffs you," he'd always say. "Let her get acquainted with you." Wondering what an appropriate waiting time was for Daisy to get acquainted with someone, I'd get tired of the conversation being stifled, and I'd have to eventually whisper something to him. Daisy would then immediately start yapping with the fierceness of an 18-inch Chihuahua that anything of that could possibly muster, and she'd start yapping and yapping and yapping. The conversation would come to a screeching halt before another 5 minutes would pass until she'd be finished with her canine tantrum. Suddenly, I thought of my sister. She always had to have her way, and my sister's voice is almost as annoying as that damn yapping dog. But this time, I was over and he told me that he had to run over to the store, so he asked me to stay and keep Daisy company. And I stood in the window and watched his fire engine red Hyundai Scoop drive him away. Daisy jumped up on the back of the couch, poised toward the window. She yapped bloody murder. I sat down in a chair. Daisy just sat in the adjacent couch, probably choosing her seat so that she'd have a view of the passing traffic she could yap at if she chose. She stretched out on the couch like a queen amongst pillows that were bigger than her bed. I thought of my sister again. She then turned her eyes toward me and squinted as if to say, "Ha ha, bitch, I've got the couch and you have to sit in the chair." She put her head down and closed her eyes. I couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to be her, to have a couch as big as a living room to crawl onto, to have nothing to worry about but hear the passing traffic. A car turned down the street and started driving toward the house. Daisy picked her head up, looked out the window, and started to growl. I attempted to show an ounce of authority to the dog. "Daisy," I said, as if that would actually do anything, like a reprimand or anything. She stopped growling, then turned her head half toward me, pausing for just a moment before she turned back and continued her growl at the traffic. I couldn't see her face, but I'm sure she had a look on it that said, "You bitch, how dare you yell at me? Who are you anyway?" She couldn't even bother to turn her head around entirely to look at me. I just sat there, looking at Queen Daisy in her glory. I sat back in my chair and tried to relax. I twisted the ring on my finger. I looked out the window and waited for him to come home. I love that the story is about Crazy Daisy.